Hello everybody and welcome to round 3 of your Simraceway American Legends Championship. We just saw an emphatic first round with a very close finish involving our very own cameraman, No Fear C, also better known as Carlos here. And now the A race looks to get set underway. We've got a full grid for you today with 5 minutes and 55 seconds left of qualifying from the infamous Laguna Seca circuit right here in the heart of America. It's such a beautiful circuit. And we've got some beautiful cars as well. The McLaren M1Bs making their return here. Of course, last time they were raced within the Simraceway competitive environment, we did see some brilliant racing indeed. We've already heard from Carlos, who was in the race a moment ago. He finished in second position, that these cars are great fun to drive around this circuit. So the drivers will be definitely pushing these cars maybe a little bit more than they should today, as they're trying to experiment with some lines and feel that very tail-happy back end step out more than a few times. So my name's Ian Jenkins. I'll call all of the action for you over the course of the evening. We've got this race, then the return of the Evolution X World Championship, which sees a huge race, and then we've got your B race and A race of the 900 to 1100 skill quad. That's all still to come, but for now we need to turn our attention back to Monterey Bay and see what the score is. It is Clark 10 who's currently on pole position with a 129.445. We've got Engange in P2 and a 129.8, so about 4/10 of a second away. Litos in P3, Supercar in P4, Agnelis in P5 with KKND in 6th place, 7th place for Rudolph 523, Flaren 8-9 in 8th position, 9th is Andy Bob, 10th is Dimitri, 11th is Fycax. I believe that is his debut here in the Simraceway Great American Legends Championship. Bellina's P12, Firefall P13, and WTTN currently sits in 4th position. So an average time in the first race, you're looking at about 1 minute 30. This time we've got a few drivers dipping in to the low 129s. If you say Clark 10 a 129.4 at the moment, he is maybe set to improve as well. He's just going over that start-finish line now. Let's see if this is going to improve his current timing or no. I believe he stays the same. Yes, there's still a 129.4, the fastest. Engange also just goes over the line to no avail, it seems. On the run down into turn 1, there was no definite improvement there. Litos over the line as well. Oh, he's lost it into the pit lane. That's very rare to see. And it shows a slightest little bump in the circuit is going to really throw these cars around. I think Litos really struggling there for Great. Yeah, he is. He's off the track again. And that car is not looking too comfortable, in all honesty. He's back to the pit lane. So he will be back out on track very shortly as the man in 4th place just overtakes him in the pit lane, Rudolph 523. So any other drivers making their way towards the end of the circuit at the moment. The closest man to doing so, I believe, is going to be Agnelis. He's just made his way through the corkscrew. Currently sits down in P7. He was P5 earlier on. He would love to maybe get himself a bit higher up the grid order for sure. But let's just wait and see how things pan out then as he goes in towards that final corner. And over the line, Agnelis is going to go now, and he does a time which doesn't really improve. No, it doesn't. He's struggling now indeed, down in P7. Back to the pits again, and with only 2 minutes 30 left, he's going to struggle to get another lap out, in all honesty. At least on a flying lap, as KKND goes over the line in 8th position. Still no man can take down Clark at the moment. Engan does another attempt, but is now 4.7 tenths of a second away. So Clark really starting to hammer away during this qualifying session. Starting to find his feet here at Monterey. Litos could still be with an outside shot to take second though as he enters the penultimate corner now. A little bit of traffic in front, but none that's really going to significantly damage his attempts at a qualifying lap. Litos goes over the line now. The gap doesn't come down still. He's still 4.6 tenths of a second away. And that is going to be a real chore for him now to find something else. So Firefall out of nowhere takes pole position by a magnificent margin of 128.532. The only man to break that alone, a 129.3, a 128.5. 8/10 of a second quicker. Absolute rocket pace by Firefall. I'm not sure if he's hiding jet boosters under that bonnet or what, but Firefall is on a rampage right now. We'll see what Clark 10 can do in response. He can't do anything. He's back in the pits. So Clark 10 session is over. Engage's session is over. Litos is the closest man who will have any hope whatsoever of taking him down. And he's 1.7 seconds off the pace. Absolutely remarkable qualifying session there by Firefall. And we'll see how this reflects as we come towards the end of the session. I can't see anybody else even reaching a 129 flat, in all honesty, as these cars really do handle like go-karts, it seems. A lot of oversteer around the Laguna Seca circuit. Litos makes his way in towards the final corner for what could be his final qualifying attempt today. Bit wide on that final apex. I think that may cost him just a little as he goes over the start-finish line again. Oh, he goes third. It's an improvement, and he cuts the gap from himself to Firefall down to just over a second. And Ganj now down to P4 after Clark rockets back up to P2. So Clark does stay there, but 8/10 of a second away. And unfortunately for him, I don't think he's getting near enough time to get back out there again. Supercar 1 still out on circuit at the moment, as is Rudolph, as is Andy Bob. Vikats goes over the line, no improvement there from his very average P8, so not a bad way to enter the series. 8th position, right in the heart of the pack. So definitely showing he has got some potential. We'll see if he can transform that into race pace a bit later on. Andy Bob still coming towards the end of his lap as well from P7. He's the next closest man to finishing, we believe. You just go round the penultimate corner there, gently over the apex he goes. Is he going to be able to take down Firefall? Has he got the pace to really get anywhere close, or maybe even improve his own time? He only needs to find a 10th of a second to take 6th and move up potentially a row on the grid. Let's find out. Over the line goes Andy Bob. Oh, and he cuts it by literally about 1,000th of a second. And unfortunately, that's not going to be it for him. A 1:30.557, his final qualifying attempt there. Flaren goes back into the pits as well. And with the majority of drivers finishing, Bolinas goes over the line and stays 14th. And that, as far as I'm aware, rounds out the entire field. Yes, it does. Qualifying session over here at Laguna Seca. We'll be right back with you shortly for the full race. Hello everybody and welcome back live to Monterey Bay here, right in the heart of it at the Laguna Seca Raceway. 13 laps here for the Simraceway American Legends Championship are about to get underway after a dominant qualifying performance from Firefall. A humongous 0.8 of a second gap to Clark 10 as they approach the end of the qualifying session. Can he retain that advantage as they go in towards turn number 1 for the first time? Let's find out as Firefall gets ready to leave the line now. A slow start, in all honesty, as Clark 10 just may try and pull around the outside, leads us there as well. Engange onto the sand a little bit there, but still streaming into the first corner. Firefall does have a definite advantage. Swing the car in a little bit too abruptly for my liking, and Clark 10 may just try and punish him for that. Definitely the more experienced of the two drivers. And the field swarm their way in towards turn number 2 and 3 under the Bridgestone Bridge. All line astern at the moment. Very clean opening couple of corners, very few scuffs. As all focus gets set on Firefall to see if his pace at the moment is going to stay like that during the entire race, or if maybe Clark 10 is going to have something to say about it, because right now he's just doing everything he can to not let him get away. 0.7 of a second already, and Litos 76 is closing and bringing the cavalry with him. Flaren goes a bit wide there to get ready to go into the corkscrew, and this is going to be arguably the most fascinating point as Clark's in the lead. Firefall's made an error, and Firefall is down to second. The back end kicks out hugely at the bottom of the corkscrew, and as Clark swings that car inwards, Litos 76 now just may fancy his chances as Firefall tries to scavenge his way back towards the front of the field. As the top 3 approach the end of lap number 1, 1 down, 12 laps to go. Still Clark 10 leads with Firefall in second. Look at the intense battle going on behind as well. That's between Supercar 1 and Engange. The two blue M1Bs there, as you can see their way streaming in towards that first corner. A little bit of a fight as well between Flaren and Ficax in his debut. He's made a net 1 drop so far down to P9, but Engange struggling to hold on there as the two red M1Bs of both Andy Bob and Rudolph tries to get involved, and I think Andy Bob just may have made mincemeat of both of them. He has indeed. 2 cars in 2 corners. Andy Bob is on the move, and that promotes him up to 4th position. Take a look forward as well. Firefall now fighting back for the lead as Clark 10 sits underneath him, and unfortunately this time round he just wasn't able to get the move completed. He's struggling a little bit now. These two have got to be careful. It's a long afternoon, 13 laps of fuel, and we've got a bit of an incident in the background. Luckily it was easily recovered there by Ficax, but the man who currently inhabits P9 did just run very, very wide going through turn number 6. And into the corkscrew they come, very scruffy by the race leader, and Clark 10 almost follows suit. Litos does everything he can there to hold on for as long as he can, but right now he may have to do a little bit more. Let's just wait and see how things pan out as the drivers approach the end of lap number 2. The order remaining pretty much the same as it was as it started. Took a ride on board there with Clark 10 as he tries to somehow keep Firefall contained. One thing he can't do with that man is let him get into clean air, and that's exactly what he's accomplished. The gap back up to 0.7 of a second after lapping exactly 1.2 seconds faster last time round. A 1:31.1 is easily the fastest of the day. We've got a technical issue there for Engange, we think. And Engange is in P9. He's limping around the circuit. He's like a wounded wildebeest, just waiting to be picked up by the huntsman, isn't he? He's looking very, very slow, and you can see there's a definite wheel issue there, I think. Well, that's some sort of feedback issue or what. He's not exactly looking the most competitive he ever has done. And Agnalis may just punish him for that very shortly. He's dropping down the field faster than you can say, Laguna Seca. And Agnalis is gaining on him at a rapid rate. Anyway, talking of Ficax then, after being promoted to 8th position, after overtaking Engange, he's now just trying to stay with the fellow Orange M1B of Flaren. In all honesty, he's doing a very good job so far in this early stage. We've seen drivers do a lot worse, and he almost pulled alongside there as drivers seem to be struggling to find a decent and consistent line through the corkscrew today. It's a recurring issue, one that's always a problem here at the Laguna Seca. That corner is so unpredictable So difficult to get that one line right 100% of the time, but as they come towards the end of lap number 3, it is still Firefall that leads. Clark 10 sits in P2, Litos in P3, Andy Bob in P4 over the line. We've got to take a look back as well on Engange, because right now he's right at the bottom of the field in 13th, and he is the overall favourite to win this championship. So Engange, who's had such a dominating force here in the opening 2 rounds of the championship, is now under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure as that car is squirming around the circuit. 13th position, and don't forget these drivers do get one drop round, but ideally you want your drop round to at least be a bit of a fallback, so you've got a nice choice of results to pick from when you pick your best 3 forward. Engange cannot afford a bad race here today, otherwise the pressure will be seriously mounted next weekend as they're going towards the final round of the championship. He's got to find a solution to this problem, and he has to recover it as soon as possible. Otherwise it could well be game over for him. He's struggling to hold on against Dimitri. Position change up in front as Belinas makes a bit of an error. By a bit, I mean he's lost out to KK&D and it's already 1.6 seconds away. So Belinas has made some sort of problem for himself there as he enters the corkscrew for the 4th time today. A bit further up in front as well, Rudolph now attacking Supercar, darting to the inside. Supercar trying to sweep, and has a little bit of contact. Supercar did extremely well there to not succumb to the pressure. And as Rudolph tries to sneak back underneath the main straight, he can't quite do it. But he's got an extremely healthy slipstream as they make their way down into turn number 1 for the 5th time today. What can Rudolph do from here? Can he sneak inside or no? Supercar is going to be the man with the defensive line. And it's going to be the man who still retains 5th position as they come out of the corner. So some very big surprises here today so far, and taking a look back at Engange, he's losing even more time now, isn't he? Dimitri now just a mere 0.6 seconds away as Engange swerves all over the track, just trying to keep that car alive, trying to keep his championship hopes alive. Of course, if he does have a bad drop result here, it's going to mean that he's going to have a very, very interesting last round, and Clark 10's off, and he's lost the wheelies out of the race. And there may be a bit of a silver lining there for Engange as Clark 10 has lost his front right wheel. Litos 76 is in the lead of the race. Firefall is second. Clark 10 simply just missed a braking point going into the corner, and once they're in that sand trap, it's so difficult to get out. Firefall is now down to second. Andy Bob gaining on them. Then Rudolph Supercar Fikak's up to 6th place in his debut. Flaren in 7th, Eknelis in 8th. WTTN 9th, but now Engange in 12th. He has something to fight for as Clark tries to take that wounded car back to the pit lane, and he's entered the corkscrew, and I think that could very well be race over for him now. He's still trying to reverse out. Can't fault him for trying. That's some sheer determination right there. But unfortunately for Clark 10, that was a promising race gone wrong very quickly as Litos, talking of going wrong, is struggling. Under the Bridgestone tyre again, and Firefall still being a serious threat. Andy Bob looks on from the, ideally, the most enviable position on the circuit, watching these two squabble until perhaps an inevitable collision happens, and he can simply just jump on the end of it and capitalise as soon as he can. But Firefall needs to do absolutely everything he can right now, and a big wobble there as well. This M1B is almost frightening to watch as it laps Laguna Seca. So unpredictable, so light, and yet so furious as well. And he's got the corkscrew all wrong there, just about. Yes, that car slowed down in time. That's going to give some serious advantages, not only to Litos, but to the man chasing as well. Andy Bob is looking very intense right now. And we really could not complain at all as to the sheer dominance that Firefall did have in qualifying, and it's almost all coming undone. But Andy Bob just about holds on. Rudolph over that start finish line in P4, Supercar 1 in P5, Mike in P6. There's still a lot to play for here. We've only just really hit the halfway mark. The Supercar 1's car goes again a little bit out of shape. And again, he's not exactly carrying the tidiest of lines this afternoon, is he? And Fycax, the outside of the man who's making his debut in this championship today, could be looking for an outside spot at a top 5. Who knows? He's definitely got some momentum here. He's definitely got something to race for. It's not all about sheer pace, and he's proven that already by being in front of championship favourite in Ganjan by, well, one of the most dominant forces in this race up until a few moments ago was Clark 10. So Clark is now, we're presuming, out of the race. Yeah, he is. He retired on lap number 5. So he made it back to the pit lane, considered the damage was too much and didn't really get that car fixed in time. But as we look back to the 2 leaders again, Firefall attacking, Litos on the defensive side of things. Over the line to start the 8th encounter of the circuit. And Firefall is looking more dangerous than ever, it seems. He needs to get himself in clean air, but it's very difficult to do around the circuit. Everybody knows exactly how difficult Laguna Seca is to conquer. And these M1Bs are proving us exactly right and showing us why here today, as Firefall is looking all left, right, up, down, and every possible direction imaginable on a compass to try and find a way through. But Litos 76 is holding strong with just under half the race to go. Don't forget, after this we do head over to the Mitsubishi Evolution X World Championship, and that's going to be a big 50-lap race, so you won't want to miss that one. And Litos throws the car in nice and early just to try and get an advantage. I think he did, in fact, as the dirty air flowing over Firefall's bonnet definitely worked in his favour. As under the Rolex sign they go into arguably one of the most beautiful corners in all of racing. And Litos still comes out on top. A nice clean line through there. Something which is very hard to do. So I'll give you a quick update of lap times and positions as they start lap number 9. They'll enter the final corner now with Litos considerably a little bit further behind. Firefall doing just about enough to cling onto the back. The question is, who was the fastest of the 2 drivers on lap number 8? Let's find out. It was a 1:29.3 from Litos, your leader, a 1:29.2 from the chaser of Firefall. So Firefall was a little bit quicker as he takes a braver line, and Litos goes deep. Firefall on the inside. Litos will have momentum as they go in towards turn number 4, but it's not enough. Firefall's way in front by then, and that is signed, sealed, delivered. Your pole sitter is back out in front. So Andy Bob in P3, who still could be an outside shot to win this. He's still got a bit of work to do. 4.3 seconds away. He needs some contact, but still don't ride him off just yet. This is Simraceway, and anything can happen. But Firefall dips into the corkscrew, just about retaining his line. And you've got to feel that your belly turning at that, because that's a big drop for this car to undergo. The Litoses seemingly dropped off hugely as Supercar and Rudolph go side by side. This time Rudolph becoming the victor. It's heading towards the final few laps of this race. Supercar trying to move around the outside. To no avail, and he's still trying to find any kind of line. This could be the one. Round the outside of the final corner. Does he duck back underneath? Yes, he does. And he's played that so well. If he can make it stick, he won't get the drive he needs, and Rudolph can cover it. But even so, it was a genius idea to cut back underneath the corner that tight. Could have been a stupendous manoeuvre, arguably the overtake of the afternoon so far. But still, Rudolph retains his 4th position in that battle for now. And now Supercar cuts back underneath again. Also be on the outside line. It's not where he wants to be, and Rudolph is just about holding on. Indeed he is, and Supercar still vying for more in all honesty. Doing the absolute best he can, but it's just not quite enough here. Lap 10 of 13, so we're going to have 3.5 laps to go. Litos now back in the lead by 3 seconds, so he's missed someone out front. Litos is again back in the lead, and this is something that has plagued Firefall all afternoon. He's so strong, so quick when it comes to 1 lap qualifying pace, but under a racing environment he just doesn't quite have that consistency level yet, and that is something that makes a difference between a winner and a champion. Over the line, being quick is one thing, but being consistent is another, and I think Litos may be the more consistent of the 2 contenders. 3 more laps to go, and you've got to feel like Litos may have this one in the bag. But 2.282 is the gap now between Litos and Firefall, with Andy Bob 3.5 away. He's doing a very good job, isn't he, so far? But still, Rudolph and Supercar 1 are dueling away over P4 and P5. This has been a battle brewing for quite some time. And oh, Supercar 1 with a big wiggle there. And I think Supercar needs to try and find something more very quickly as well, because 16 minutes into this race, the penultimate lap gets underway now. 2.4 the gap between Firefall and Litos. But the thing is, there's only 2 more laps, and this is where Firefall gets good. You don't need to be consistent over 2 laps. If you're chasing, you just need to be quick, and that is not quick. That is pushing too hard, and that is exactly what these pressure situations can do. He's in the wall! Firefall's in the wall, he's out of the race! And what on earth has just transpired? The pole sitter, who's led such a vast majority of this race, who's been in the thick of the action all afternoon, has just retired. Utterly unbelievable. He could have been the catalyst in a real championship scrap into the final race, but unfortunately for him, he's not. Enganche has a silver lining. 2 big names retire, Clark 10 and now Firefall. Was that a withdrawal? Was that a retirement? Was that a sign of giving in? It could be all 3. Supercar and Rudolph are now fighting over 3rd position with just over a lap and a half to go. This is going to be some closing stage of the race, isn't it? Andy Bob still gaining on Litos as well. He's 2.7 away. And still trying to do as much as he can at this stage, but Andy Bob goes in towards that start finish straight again. Does he close the gap? Yes, he does by 5/10. There is hope for Andy Bob, and you can just see that looming red mist in the background.
This is the final lap. Keep it going.
And you can see the orange car leaving the pit lane now. He's hopefully not going to get in the way of these 2 drivers. We can certainly hope indeed anyway. Oh, the big collision, he does get in the way. And on his debut, not enough fuel, I don't think, for Firecracks. I don't think it was his fault. He stayed as far right as he could. It was Supercar just going a bit wide. But Supercar right now doing anything and everything he can to catch Rudolph before this race is up. I don't think Andy Bob's going to be able to catch Litos despite bringing that gap down to 1.2 seconds. There's simply not enough time left on the clock. But Litos has done well to hold on. He's seen 2 big contenders off today. Clark 10 and Firefall And in return, he's going to be awarded with a very close but very big race victory. And this is going to assert himself right back in the hunt as well. Leads on 76, wins the race, and asserts himself back in the championship hunt. Andy Bob in P2. Rudolph is going to cross the line and just hold off Supercar, who just maybe give him a few more laps. He would have had the move done, but he couldn't muster it up in the end. A good fourth position, though, and a good podium for Rudolph 523. A spectacular result there for him. Flaren 89 with a top 5. Big result there for Flaren. Big confidence boost as they go into the final round. WTTM 6th, KKND 7th. Ek Nellis is going to cross the line in a moment in 8th position, with Bolinas behind him in 9th. Dimitri 10th. Ingange still going strong. Now that is true driver determination there. Vikax down to 12th after what I'm presuming could be a fuel miscalculation. 13 is Firefall, and out of the race was himself and Clark number 10. But that does bring us to the end of this race. We'll be right back with you with the next round of the Mitsubishi Evolution X World Championship. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you shortly. Hello everybody and welcome to the second round of the Mitsubishi Evolution X World Championship, coming to you here today from what could be a very grueling and almost like a survival race from a very difficult infield circuit from the Auto Club Speedway. Very, very difficult thing to do is to conquer this circuit, and I'm sure these drivers are going to struggle here today. We've got almost a full grid here with the Mitsubishi Evos, and this car, well, the circuit itself is only 6 corners long. The lap itself is only 34 seconds, which means when you've got about 15 cars all vying for position on a 6-corner circuit for 50 laps, with laps of just over half a minute, there is no time for these drivers to cool down, admire their surroundings, or anything like that. It is something which is so difficult to really reprimand. I mean, I've been in situations before, I've tried, you know, racing, well, I would say competitively, but I've tried racing in Simraceway, and it's difficult enough when you're trying to attack a car on a circuit like the Laguna Seca we saw earlier on, or like Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But such a tight, narrow circuit with only 6 corners, which measures in at just over a mile, is very difficult. I'm sure these drivers are going to be putting on a fine display today, but 50 laps is almost 40 minutes worth of racing. And I think it's really going to be a survival of the fittest kind of scenario. It's all about self-management. It's all about looking at your surroundings. There's a very difficult chicane there, especially as you go towards that start-finish line in towards turn number 1. That final chicane, the tyres are so close to the apex, they may as well be the apex of the corner. You try and overtake a car through there, you're pretty much asking for a death wish. And these drivers are going to struggle today. You cannot afford to cut here. Some circuits drivers do like to try and get away with a bit of cutting or sandbagging and try to get inside their opponent's heads. Not on this circuit. There's no room to do it. You try and cut here, and there are some very tyres just waiting there to catch you out. You can see there is Firefall in 14th goes over them, and look how close the inside of that car gets. Over the start-finish line, he'll go. He's looking to try and set himself some decent lap times, but the current pole sitter is Cortese by 900ths of a second from Beaker 01 in P2. Put on a stunning display last time round. Graffindo in 3rd, Lounger 4th. Van Panther sits in P5 at this stage. But still a lot to change as he goes over that start-finish line once again. And he goes 2nd, so big lap, just as we say, a lot can change. Van Panther could very well be that wind blowing. That means Lounger's now 5th, B13 in 6th, now Senor 7th, Mabirio is in 8th position, Penge in 9th, 10th place Luke, 11th Wild 7, Mr. PA 12th, Mergia 88 in 13th, Firefall still in 14th, and almost a second away from his nearest competitor here on the shortest version of our latest track to Sim Raceway. You can download this track completely free from the game. If you're not a member, all you have to do is sign up at simraceway.com and you'll get free access to this circuit, so be sure to go and check it out. And just looking at the stakes of what really couldn't be any higher, this is absolutely crazy. I cannot wait for this as well. There will be a nice surprise for you as the track will say goodbye, let's say, but for now we have to admire the closing stages of this very intense qualifying session. I think it's not going to be long before we find out who's going to be on pole position. It is just a fact of 1 minute 34. But in all honesty, it could all change so quickly. There's only 0.7 seconds now separating Cortese and Van Panther, so 700ths of a second between your first 2 cars today. And that is going to be absolutely crucial. Let's see what Cortese can do. Can he improve his current time or no? Yes, he can! Up to 700ths then. 5 cars are within 0.2 of a second. Absolutely remarkable, and I fear I may need more than a glass of water after this, because this is going to absolutely destroy my throat. I cannot wait to get this race underway. But first of all, we have a very tense qualifying session to see the climax of. So let's see, a 34.966 as Lounger goes 2nd. 600ths away, so he beats Van Panther by exactly 100th of a second. right in the closing stages. 15 qualifying attempts here for Cortese. That's absolutely remarkable. The most laps of the day, though, actually go to a man right in the midfield. It's Lounger in second on 17 qualifying laps. In a 10-minute session, that is pretty remarkable, if I don't say so myself. Absolutely committed there for Lounger. And as the drivers now start to make their way towards the end of the session, Cortese can't better himself. Lounger's in the pits. That leaves it to this man, Van Panther in third. Beaker can't better himself. Graufindo or Ribeiro could not beat their previous times. Can Van Panther? No, he can't. A 35-1. Well, he does beat his previous time. He's only 100 of a second away, but he cannot get any closer, unfortunately. So Beaker, Graufindo, Nelsenor, Ribeiro, B13, Penge, PA, Luke Sky, Wild 7, Firefall, and Mercia round out your whole 14-car grid for the race. We'll be right back with you with what could be the most technical race of the season from the Auto Club Speedway. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this is it then. 50 laps of a 6-corner circuit where our lap takes just over 30 seconds. This is going to be absolutely insane. Lounger says there he feels like he's on pole position, confident as he starts from P2 on the inside line. The question is, can he convert it into leading the race after lap 1? It's all about endurance, this one. We've got 4 red lights, we've got 5. And now we have a green flag underway. Big start there from Lounger, but an even bigger one by the pole sitter. Interfield need to get themselves into a very tight first corner, and Lounger does in fact take pole, and Beacon takes second. Cortese slipping down the order to third as the rest of the field try and get rearranged here in a very quick fashion. Through the first chicane they go. They're already halfway around the lap. It's quite difficult to believe. And they're all vying for manoeuvres as Cortese just goes a bit too wide there. Beacon doing absolutely everything in his power to hold on to the back of Lounger right now before it's too late and he escapes. As they come towards the end of lap number 1, we've got a couple of cars in the very background there who struggled. I think it's Luke, Sky and PA, indeed it is. Firefall in the meantime up to P11, fighting with Mercier over 10th. But to no avail just yet. 9th is what they're competing for onto lap 2 of 50 already here, snaking their way through. And what a view this is. Baker 01 in the lead, and he's already struggling a little after overtaking Lounger. He needs to try and keep his head down and not worry about what's going on behind him. He needs to try and really push on now and focus as if he's just doing a 47 lap time trial. They're already on lap number 3. And this is going to be a very, very tense half an hour or so for these drivers. As we say, there's no time to hold up, no time to admire the surroundings or take a breather or even just relax in constant tension inside that cockpit. And a bit of side-by-side action now with Senior and Cortese. Cortese already down to 4th, now down to 5th. As they're still side-by-side, Cortese won't give up easily as they start lap number 4. But I think for his sake, unfortunately he is. Oh, a big spin! And he got sandwiched between Senior and the tyre barrier. I don't think it was intentional. Cortese now goes down to 13th position and has to get back on the circuit. A big unfortunate event, and again one of the consequences of this circuit, trying to overtake through a corner like that is only going to lead to bad things, and unfortunately that was just a consequence of the nature of the circuit. The Beacon still leads, Lounger still second, Graufinkel trying to cling onto the back of these guys in third, and that's that long midfield train of Ribeiro, B13, Penge and Mercier all the way down to 8th position as the guys start their 5th lap of the race. Beacon's done a nice job so far in all honesty. He started a bit further behind. He's already overtaken the pole sitter. He's got past Lounger as well. He said he felt like he was on pole position. Made a big gain into turn 1 and it was soon stripped back from him by that blue Mitsubishi Evo of Beaker, who we said already he's made some big impressions here in his opening few races in the Mitsubishi Evolution X World Championship. He's done some great things, had some big finishes, and this could be his biggest yet if he stays in his current position. Graufinkel trying to hold off that train in third at the moment. You can see you got 1 and 2 pulling away, who are now 2.2 seconds in front of Graufinkel. Then Graufinkel, Senior, Ribeiro, B13, Penge, Mercier, even Wild 7 and his crew are starting to catch up to these guys. That involves PA, Van Panther, Luke Sky and then Cortese. Firefall's out of the race in 14th. First retirement of the day, came on lap number 2, kind of slipped under the radar unfortunately, just due to the sheer amount of action that we've got on the circuit at the moment. But I'm sure we'll be back fighting stronger next race. And that's 2 retirements out of 2 races there for Firefall. Very bizarre indeed. We were hoping that he was going to be a bit more domineering in this one. He had such a great run in the opening race of the night back at Laguna Seca a few moments ago, but doesn't seem like it's his today. And he's got to watch the rest of this one from the paddock as Beaker Jow gets a 1.09 second I should say gap over Lounger, and it's bound to improve as well. Now up to 1.2. Graufinkel 3.8 seconds behind, and now Senior back in P4 with Ribeiro in P5. But now Senor can't quite make a move stick through there. He's trying in turn one. A lot of drivers are chancing a turn one inside line, but have to bear in mind that is where Cortese's race took a turn for the worst. He now finds himself down in 12th. We'll keep you updated on his current positions. But for now, he's still struggling. He's right at the back of that pack. He can't overtake. And that is why qualifying, especially at this circuit, is so important. Yes, it's 50 laps. Yes, it's about half an hour race, but the track is so narrow, you're literally just following the car in front of you, praying he makes a mistake the entire race. And if you can't pull alongside, you're not going to make any passes in this race here. And this is what Cortese's very rapidly discovering as he darts to the inside as they begin lap number 10 and 50. And he's made a pass on the corner, which cost him that entire race lead. Wild Seven's got himself back on the inside again just to cover. Not quite there fast enough though. Cortese moves in towards the top 10. And now he's going to try and navigate his way through that squabble as Mergier, PA and Van Panther all underway. And those guys still side by side, switching sides, swerving around. It's a very tense bit of action to be watching, that's for sure. We'll see if anything updates over the next few laps or so regarding Beaker, because right now, that man's almost untouchable at the very top of the order. So Lounger P2, now Senor's in third, Graufinkel still holding strong in fourth, but unable to find anything else to capitalise on at the moment. And we're now about a quarter of the way through almost. Here at Simraceway's newest circuit addition to the game. Texas Motor Speedway. It's a beautiful circuit. I'm talking of speedways as well. Don't forget we've got the Daytona 500 as well. That's live, so I'm sure a lot of you guys will be tuning into that one as soon as they finish racing here tonight. As we take a look into turn one again, Beaker 01 makes his way over the start-finish line, turns into the corner, 8.5 seconds over Penge in P7. Just a random statistic there, but just shows you how close this field really is. 10 seconds separate the field after 13 laps of racing, so still ridiculously close there between everyone. But either way, Lounger 1.1 seconds away. He's not really had that same presence he had at the very start of the race. Of course, he was leading at one very early point. And now Senor and Graufinkel still dueling away. As Ribeiro, B13 and Penge start to draw each other a little closer now. They've been swapping around the past few laps, especially in terms of momentum, but no real cemented overtaking manoeuvres. It's all very much been a case of make a move back out of it because you've run out of road, and that's going to be, I think, a factor here today. And don't forget as well, there is a 500-mile event to commemorate the Daytona 500. That is live in games if you do want to get involved. And you watch it on your TV screens a bit later on and thinking, you know what, I'd love to drive the Daytona 500. You too can drive yourself a 500-mile event in Simraceway. Just go to the event, it will be listed on the page, and you too can get involved in the challenge. It's definitely going to be one worth signing up for, and I'm maybe giving it a go myself, depending on if I can keep a car on the track for more than 7 laps. We'll have to wait and see. But one man who's definitely showing us how to keep a car on track is Beaker, as he's now extending his gap to 1.6 seconds now. He was 0.3 faster that lap alone than Lounger, a 35.06 compared to a 36.2. So Lounger starting to fall away a little bit now, unfortunately. Now Senor maintaining his strength in P3. Graufinkel doing okay in 4th still. Ribeiro just about holding strong in P5. It's B13. Then you've got Penge in P8. Those two blue cars dueling away at the moment with Van Panther gaining ever nearer. He's not quite close enough yet though. Okay, so apologies for the technical difficulties there as the sun begins to set here in the heart of Texas. We've still got just over half the race left to go. We've got Lounge just slowly wheeling Beaker back in now as he took a great ride on board with the man who's chasing down Van Panther in P9 at the moment. And that was just a few moments ago, but for now, the sky starts to darken and so do these drivers' races. A bit of side-by-side action there with Ribeiro and B13. It's B13 who's come out on top of it for now. We're not too sure if he's going to be able to keep that advantage going or no, however. Let's just wait and see, because it does look like Ribeiro is trying to get on the counter-attack. He just hasn't been able to muster up a manoeuvre just yet, despite his finest efforts. Battle there, you just take a look at with Graufindo in the white Evo. The headlights have come on now to these cars as they try to adjust to the changing day to night cycle and see just how long they can hold on without headlights, because obviously it's going to reflect in the wing mirrors. The drivers are going to have limited visibility, but you put them on and this is when things get a little bit crazy, because you can only see a certain amount in front of you. You don't want to be blinding other drivers. It's a very difficult call to make in this sort of twilight period. Just have to see who can be kind of the master of it, especially if you're chasing a car with the headlights on. It's a good idea to maybe throw him off balance a bit, confuse him, maybe getting his mindset, but really see it being too much of an issue for a good another, I'd say, 10 laps or so. As soon as we hit maybe lap number 35, that's when things are going to start getting really dark and when headlights are going to kind of come into their own. An old contact in the back there, and that was with Mr. Pierre and Ribeiro. Ribeiro took the hit, turns his car back round, and whoa, it's going to be a penalty. Surely Cortese literally ran straight through him. It was terrible recovery by Ribeiro as he tried to circulate his car back onto the racing line, knowing the invulnerability would wear off soon. There's a wheel rolling across the circuit, and that has to be some sort of reprimand there. Cortese seemingly innocent. Nothing really you can do on a corner that tight. But as we approach half race distance, it's still Beaker 01 who leads. But as we say, still plenty of action left to go. We've got a lot of battles, a lot of scores to be settled. Drivers do make their way towards the end of the race. The sky's still darkening right now as Graufindo chases now Senor. They're over P4 and P3, so that battle heating up very nicely. Question is, can he get past or no? You've seen a great shot there on board previously as he tries to attack now Senor, but to no avail just yet. They run so close to those inside chicane walls that it almost becomes a chore to not run into them. They're so close. They're almost kissing the paint with the side of the car every single time as Graufindo pulls onto the inside. I think he may have made that move stick. And indeed he has. A beautiful manoeuvre. And it's exactly how you overtake at this very short infield circuit, just 6 corners long. And that was surely a masterful manoeuvre there by Graufindo a few moments ago, and one that definitely deserved him to see up in P3 now. It was a move which really did showcase his amazing talent here inside this Evo Championship. Still, many could consider him inside the championship hunt, of course. And off into the background, no, and now Senor's off. Now Senor, who just took a moment off track, is now trying to follow Van Panther. Not where he needs to be whatsoever. A terrible mistake there for now Senor. And now that sees him dropped all the way down into P6. So still with a lot of ground to gain, a lot of work to try and make up to push his way back through the field. Cortese there, another man who's had to try and deal with his fair share of incidents today. A bit of a spot of bother after the collision at turn number 1 at a very early point during the race, but right now I think he may not be in such an enviable position at all. He's pushing on quite nicely. He's in P7. There's a lot of time left in this race. They're only just going up towards that number 30 now, so he's got himself a long way to go, about 21 laps or so. You really can't write him off at all for maybe a top 5. I think a win just could be out of the question, but you just never know. And the sky already starting to set now, taking that beautiful. Oh my goodness me, a huge hit there. And that's Cortese again. And again, apologies for the delay, but G Cortese, if you just missed it, took a huge wallop into the barrier, and that may see the end of his race. It's seemingly now he's trying to avoid being lapped there as Lounger continues to bring the gap down and really start to hammer the pressure onto your leader Beaker. But for now, Cortese reels his car back into the pit lane. And that is such an unfortunate incident there for him. But as we take a look through the field, lap 32 out of 50 underway. The sky darkening, and for a few of these drivers, their race and their championship prospects are also darkening. We'll take you now with that huge incident. We saw Ribeiro get involved in another incident a moment ago. There are a lot of drivers now starting to feel the enduring factors of this circuit, but it looks so beautiful under the night lights. But unfortunately, beautiful does not mean easy, and this is exactly what this field is finding out here today. It is not an easy task to bring one of these Mitsubishi Evos home in such a difficult and such a demanding racing environment. You've got to be so much more, I'd say, cautious on the brakes, and so much more cautious when it comes to approaching these corners, especially in the extended haul. Lap 34 of 50, and Beaker just about clinging on now. Lounger is still sticking with him. He hasn't really let him go just yet, but I don't think he's going to be enough for a move unless there's a mistake. Again, saying that, never say never. This is Simraceway, and we have seen our fair share of surprises in the past. Either way, Beaker still holding on. Again, apologies for the, I would say, late / lack of commentary here today. There has been some technical difficulties, and doing the best I can to keep you guys updated as to what's happening on the circuit as the sky gets incredibly dark here in Texas right now. And if you are feeling some Speedway vibes, then be sure to check out the big 500-mile event on your Simraceway events page, completely free of charge. And it's really going to, again, see the very best of drivers take on some very demanding environments and challenging drivers. I'm sure that's exactly what we're seeing here today as Beaker just keeps that gap over a second on lap 36 out of 50. Graffindel just holding on for as long as he can, I think, at the moment, in front of some very competitive drivers who sit just behind him, maybe waiting for a chance to overtake. B1386 is one of those drivers. Still a long way to go in this race. Either way, as the race does slowly come to a close now, we do have about, I'd say, 9 minutes or so left of racing. We approach the important lap number 50. And it's still, in all honesty, Beaker who leads, and Beaker's done a very impressive job again. We saw in the first 2 rounds of this championship, he keeps his head strong, he's determined, he's consistent, and that's it. He may not be the quickest driver on the field, but what he is absolutely consistent. And by doing that, he overcomes all of the rookie errors by the newer drivers and some of the later errors, or more collision-inclined errors, we'll call them, by the more experienced drivers. And add all of it together and you have a real complete package, and exactly what Beaker's capable of, I think we've shown a taste of today. Bear in mind, there is no Ace or Collar racing tonight, so that does alleviate a little bit of pressure off the field, but that does just show that Beaker has got some incredible pace. We saw a big qualifying lap from him to put him on the second row of the grid, and his race pace has just been absolutely unrelenting in the first 4/10 of this one. So we're approaching lap number 41 then. The drivers really starting to get into the final, almost desperation groove as I like to call it now. Things really start to get difficult for these men. There's a lot on the line, the race is coming to a close, the night is fully set underway, the track temperature begins to drop, the grip levels begin to fall, and the stakes start to rise. They're things which only a race driver can deal with, and who deals with them the most is really going to determine who's a champion, who's a winner, and who maybe just simply isn't made out for it just yet. A bit of action now, you can just see on your screens at the moment. It's going to be B1 386 and Graufinkel, both of those guys who have been battling away over the past few laps or so over P3. And I'm sure their race is going to come right down to the wire. I don't see it ending any other way, in all honesty. And look at B13 doing everything he can to hold off at the moment from the man who's now getting involved in this battle as well. So the 2 has become 3. And Van Panthers begin to chase. The question is Van Panthers' chase really going to be enough to set him aside from the rest of the field? His headlights have come on, so the track really is almost at pitch black out there right now. So the fans, if they're only in the grandstands, will be getting very cold indeed. So, over the curbs and so close to these tyres that pack go, but it is still Beaker that leads from Lounger in P2. And again, Lounger, 2 very consistent results there in a row for him, I believe, as well. Very strong last time out, perhaps even stronger here, another second place. So, Lounger is very much a competitor in this championship. And now, as we just have about 3 or 4 minutes left of action, this is when drivers turn into men. Now Senor about 25 seconds away from the battle that's on screen at the moment. It gets closer and closer, and you can just see how difficult it is to overtake. The onboard views of these cars brilliantly illustrated by No Fear C. But all you can see in front is really just the other car. Maybe a few apexes here and there, maybe a few strands of grass, but for the most part, all you're seeing is the car in front of you. This track is so narrow that it takes up all of the view. Very difficult thing to do is to pass around this beautiful speedway. And don't forget, if you do want to download this track, it's completely free on Simraceway, so be sure to head over to simraceway.com and get stuck in, and who knows, maybe you can find yourself in the Mitsubishi Evolution X World Championship one day as well. We just have about 6 laps of action left to go. Right now then, the climax of this race is approaching, then we will head over our way back to the Laguna Seca, and that'll be for the next round of your American Legends Championship, which will see the entire field of the B race and the A race battle it out over in Monterey Bay using the McLaren M1Bs. We saw some brilliant action in the first race earlier on. In the first two, we saw a great finish in the 500 to 900B. I'm sure we're going to see much of the same here today as well, as we go back over to Monterey Bay after this, so don't go anywhere. There's still plenty of action left in the pipeline for you, but B1386 has been the man who's caught the most attention on the camera over the past few moments or so. We've just got the penultimate lap to go now before that checkered flag comes out.
This is the final lap. Keep it going.
So the penultimate lap's underway. The driver's about to come to the end of what must have been a grueling half an hour for them. It's not exactly been an easy journey, is it? They must have been through drivers out. There'll be sweat dripping off their forehead by the end of this one, but we have to take a look at what Beaker01 is doing, because he's driven a fantastic race and he is going to cross the line as the winner of the race. There's not long now, and Beaker01 has surely clambered to an end. Lounger is going to follow very closely in second. Beaker's done absolutely everything he can today, and it has paid off. A dominating performance, a great win, but Lounger's the man who follows him to the line again. Another big finish for him. Lounger is very much a force to be reckoned with in the championship. Grafindel third, B1386 fourth, who just loses out to Van Panther in the end. Van Panther steals fourth. Then it's B1386 who rounds out your top 5 for the race. And what a tense finale that was for those two drivers. The rest of the field cross over the line respectively, and that does bring us to the closure of the race. As Grafindel crosses the line as well, you can see the rest of the pack now just making their way to the paddock after what's been a very intense race for them. But we go back over to Monterey Bay very shortly for the next round of the Simraceway American Legends Championship. Hello everybody and welcome back live to your Simraceway American Legends Championship. We've got 5 minutes of qualifying left to go from the Laguna Seca track, and the McLaren M1Bs once again putting on a beautiful show of exactly how to drive this legendary circuit. So my name's Liam Jenkins. I'll be calling all of your action tonight from what could be one of the most important rounds in the championship, as Fregel looks to be the man to domineer it at the moment. A 128.467 for him puts himself in a relatively good contention at the front of the field, just 1.2 tenths in front of Graf Findel, who had a very interesting race in the Mitsubishi Evolution, what I would say elimination chamber essentially. For any of those wrestling fans out there, it really was the most grueling race to watch. Only 6 corners, about half an hour in length. A very tough race to race indeed, and Graf Findel pulled through it with flying colours. We've got Ribeiro in P3, Luke Sky P4, Android past P5, Busy in P6, well he just jumps up to P5 actually, so, and then pulls off back into the pit lane. So Mad Max is in 7th as he enters the corkscrew, PA is 8th as he leaves the corkscrew, now Senor is in P9, Wild 7 in 10th, the Magico is in 11th place, and that rounds out your field for the moment. We have 19 laps of action set for you today, which will be determined from the last 4 minutes of qualifying in terms of where the order will be sat at. Graf Findel still looking good. Ribeiro jumps up to 4th, so good run there, 128.824 in his 3rd attempt. So 3 minutes to go, and now things really do start to heat up a bit, because this is where the drivers start to come into their own. PA now sits in P5, Mad Max now in P4, and Andre Pasa in P3. Now Senor just jumps a second, a 128.375. He's now just 0.05 of a second away from Graf Findel, so he's still got plenty of time left to try and find something more as well. See what he can do though as Andre crosses the line, Ribeiro crosses the line as well. Still no improvements from those guys. However, your provisional pole sitter is making his way in towards that final corner. Swings the wheel inwards, careful of the anti-cut strip. He does a nice job through there. And then over the start-finish line again. Does he improve? The answer's no. And he's now less than half a tenth of a second away from now Senor, who's making his way through turn number 6 now. That very tight left-hander. 80 mile an hour through there, and back on the throttle nice and early on the entrance to the corkscrew. So he's still got a few shockers perhaps in the making. Mad Max is about to cross the line from P6. It's been a very good lap so far. Is it about to get even better as he goes over the line? No, it's not, unfortunately, so he must have lost some time in the final sector. Talking of losing time, Mr. PA's lost it in a very unfortunate place indeed. That's turn number 1, which means that he's going to have to go through the entire lap if he wants to try and get another qualifying attempt. And with 1 minute 51 seconds left, he should have just enough time on the clock. Andre Pasa is about to come across the start-finish line again. Currently placed in 5th position. There for him, unfortunately, that time, but nonetheless, a very good attempt. So the majority of the field are in that mid-section at the moment, making their way in towards and around the corkscrew. One man who isn't is Fregel, as he makes his way through the final corner, and he should get one more qualifying attempt out of this, we believe. So over the line he trails. And that doesn't improve his time though. He's still about 100th of a second away from where it needs to be, or 10th of a second I should say.
You left the track. This lap will not count.
But let's just see what Andre Pasa can do. Goes into the corkscrew. Gently does it, all falls off there, very secure, very safe, no risk taken at all, and you can't blame him with this little time left on the clock in qualifying. You really do have to manage your lap very well. The chance for a banker lap was well and truly gone. It's all about now just trying to nurse your car to the end and try and see if he can get some sort of big gain out of it, but I don't think he's going to be able to accomplish that anymore. Graufinkel goes way too low, he's lost it, and that's Graufinkel's session surely over. Complete 720 spin, and if this was the Winter Olympics for ski jumping, he may have earned a 9 out of 10, but I don't think that was the right environment to be doing that. And I think his chance of another lap's going to go very shortly. Now Senyor's back in the pits, he will not get a further lap today. And he drops down as Ribeiro goes second. So a last chance gas there from Ribeiro. Graufinkel is not going to be able to beat his time. Ribeiro splits to 2 and is now just 200ths of a second away from Graufinkel. So a very close grid. Fregel crosses in 4th with no gain. Now most of the drivers will be crossing line within the next 30 seconds or so. Mad Max 66 will be the next real big driver as such across the line. The man who sits on the bubble and the cusp of the top 5 now enters the final corner for his final endeavour today at a qualifying attempt. And I think this may be enough to pit Fregel. He's been very solid so far. Is it enough? No, it's not. He gets within again, 300ths of a second, but not quite there yet. Luke Sky over the line from 8th. No improvement. And I think that does round out the session. Yes, it does. Then Graufinkel takes pole from a charging Ribeiro and a threatening now Senor. Can they hold on as we will have 19 laps of action very shortly? Okay, so here we go then. Back to Laguna Seca we go for what could be one of the most important rounds of this championship. As we said before, Busy is now back. That's why we had a short delay. He now starts from P9. We've got Grafindel, who took the pole position though. Question is, can he maintain that momentum into turn one? Let's find out. We've got 4 racing at Laguna Seca. We are now for the 3rd time tonight. It's Ribeiro that's got a great start around the outside though, and he's completely done over Grafindel there. And Grafindel's going to have to try and sweep back underneath, and he just can't quite get the momentum on his side at the moment. Now Senyor's in 3rd, Fregel's in 4th, Andrew passing P5. But Ribeiro's taking the lead. He's got a bit wide. Grafindel's going to punish him for that one. And indeed he does. And these drivers now have got to try and get into a groove quickly. All 11 of them, as the race takes no prisoners here. It's all really about a sprint for the first 5 laps or so, then get into your groove. And Ribeiro's got to try and pass Grafindel as soon as possible because time is running out for the momentum to go, because as soon as Grafindel gets in clean air, he's one of a very consistent few drivers, but now he makes a very uncharacteristic error. Is Ribeiro going to try and pass him? The answer is no, and Grafindel cuts towards the inside apex and just about holds on. Ribeiro can't really find what he's looking for through there, however. And now Senor staying with these guys as they come towards the end of lap number 1. Then Fregel, PA, Andre Passer, Mad Max in P7. 8th place is Luke Sky. 9th place is Busy. 10th Wild 7.
lap. Keep it going. You left the track. This lap will not count. round. Watch the lights. Green flag, hit it, hit it. final lap. Keep it going.